Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Om Ganatimirandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayamupakadamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Saganaragnatan Pitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagna Lalita Shri Vishakanvitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Panchakalpata Yubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Sarasvati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Sarasvatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayat. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should first offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead Narayan, unto Naranarayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Sarasvati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta prayeshva bhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavat utama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. So as we mentioned earlier, this is the month of Damodar. I think it officially started yesterday. So we, Nitai Lila led us in Sri Damodarastakam. And followers of Srila Prabhupada, devotees of Krishna. Also, the Damodarastakam is a wonderful transcendental song to sing at all days of the year, but it's customary to sing it once or twice during each of the 30 days of the month of Damodar. And this morning after Japa, we read one of Krishna's childhood pastimes. We read parts of chapter 8 of Krishna book entitled Vision of the Universal Form, when Balaram and some other Krishna's friends, they accused Krishna of eating clay. And so his mother felt like he's going to get sick if he does this. But Krishna said, like, they're just trying to get me into trouble. They're just lying because I beat them in play and sports. So they're angry at me. So then he said, look, you can take a look. So she said, okay, open your mouth. And then in his mouth, she saw all the galaxies and all the elements in past, present, and future. She even, it was like an infinite regress. She saw Mother Yashoda looking into Krishna's mouth, seeing Mother Yashoda looking into Krishna's mouth, and seeing it was like an infinite regress. So, okay, and then she got some sense that, like, this isn't my little naughty mischievous boy Krishna. This is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the controller of the stars and the moon, like that. Okay, and then Krishna actually didn't like that so much, because Krishna prefers these very intimate, because the idea is like, Yes, we are servants of God, and we want to cultivate that rather than like doing my David Wolf God project. And I'm the center to cultivate that. No, I'm a servant of Krishna. Krishna and Krishna's pure devotee, Gopi Bhartu Badakamali Dasa Dasa Das. So we want to cultivate that mentality. And then so like when we're um yeah, when we're not seeing ourselves as servants of Krishna, then that's alienating to the self, and it's really the root cause of all our suffering and misery. And then at the same time, at advanced stages of devotion to Krishna, the devotee forgets that Krishna is the all-powerful Supreme Personality of Godhead, and like Mother Yashoda's saying Krishna, that I need to take care. I need to take care of my little boy. I need to protect him, otherwise he'll get sick, or he'll be attacked by a demon or an animal. And so Krishna prefers with devotees like Mother Yashoda that this exchange of parental affection. So there's Maya. Maya means the force of illusion. There's two kinds of Maya. There's Mahamaya, and that's the force of illusion that moves us to deeper forgetfulness of who we are as spirit souls and who we are as servants of God. That's Mahamaya. And that, like if I think I'm David Wolf, I'm 64 years old, I'm from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and I am in this is my house and this is my car, and like that. So that's Mahamaya. I mean, that's Mahamaya. But then there's Yoga Maya. Yoga Maya is also the force of illusion. And actually, everyone in Vrindavan is under Yoga Maya. Yoga Maya, it's illusion that inspires us deeper into self-realization and enlightenment, and deeper into our enthusiasm to serve Krishna. So Yashoda was saying, oh, this is actually the supreme controller of all the planets. Okay, but then Krishna put her under the spell of Yoga Maya again. So then she can say, it's like, no, Krishna, never do that again. Never eat dirt like that. So the mm, mm. So it's described actually. Yeah, yesterday we visited some Hebraic Old Testament verses like Bereshit bara Elohim et Hashemayim b'Haaretz, and also there at the beginning of the Old Testament it said bid B'Tselem Elohim. That's the Hebrew, which means that like humans are created in the image of God. Okay, so it means so in the Vedic version is Janmad Yasya Yataha, and that's how the Bhagavatam starts. It's how Vedanta Sutra starts, which means everything that exists in the effect must exist in the source. Okay, that's a logical principle, philosophical, rational principle. Anything that exists in the effect must exist in the source. So we have relationships and personality and form, and we like music and dancing. So how can we deny that our source dances? And like, so in the very first, in the first verses of the 15th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna gives a brilliant analogy of the banyan tree. And Krishna describes to Arjuna, like, let's say you're looking at a tree and it has its roots up and its branches down. Roots up, branches down. Where is that? Well, there is such a thing. If we're standing on the bank of a lake or a river, and on the other side, on the other bank, there's, let's say, a big banyan tree. Well, then the reflection in the water, oh, yeah, the branches are down and the roots up. So that's a metaphor for material existence and spiritual existence. So like, let's say, so the reflection of the tree or the shadow, it's real in the sense of a shadow. It's real in the sense of a shadow. But let's say there's fruits there. There's mango fruit or fig or date fruit. We try to reach it. It's empty. It's empty. So it's a metaphor that actually material life, there's nothing substantial. It's all chasing the carrot on the stick. Now, there are many philosophies that have accurate realization of that. It's true. Well, this is all illusion, that sort of, it's all a grand illusion, things like that. Now, in the purport to that first verse of Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada gives an equally brilliant analogy. He gives an explanation from the field of geometry, of mathematics. He said, okay, but that's just 180 degrees of the circle. Okay, the illusion, the shadow. He said, but a circle has 360 degrees, meaning in the other 180 degrees, there's the real tree. There are real fruits. There is the real trunk and leaves and flowers and twigs. Okay, so that's the spiritual substance. That's the vastu. We're discussing vastu is like the Sanskrit version of feng shui, like to arrange everything. Okay, so there is real vastu, and that's right there in the beginning of Bhagavatam. Talks a lot of vastu shivadam. So okay, yeah. So we're endeavoring for satisfaction in parental or romantic or business or friendship or master-servant relationships in the reflection, always frustrated, always frustrated. Prabhupada gives a similar, a related analogy, just like if there's an animal, say in a desert, hot desert, could be a human animal, but just let's say it's any sort of animal. And the animal's running, it's thirsty, but like, 50 yards in the distance, there's an oasis with water. So it runs 50 yards. It's actually just a mirage. Oh, but the oasis, it's 100 yards that way, go that way, go that way. And then eventually it just dies in the desert because there's no water. But that's not true. There is water. There's just not water in the desert, but there is water. Just like there is a real banyan tree. From the shadow, say the shadow of a tree or the shadow of a person standing or the shadow of a building, from the shadow, we can understand clearly there is the real substantial thing. Oh, there must be a real tree, must be a real building, must be a real person standing there. I can see the shadow, there must be the real thing. And at the same time, from the shadow, we don't get any sense of what the real thing is like, the texture and the color and the character and the depth. So just like, yeah, like, well, tomorrow we're entering into a seminar called Sapporo 3, an adventure in conscious living. And so in the seminars, so this, okay, these particular pastimes, this morning we read about the universal form. So Damodarastakam talks about Krishna stealing the butter, okay? And Mother Yashoda chasing him. So we'll read a little bit from that. And so, yeah, so it's pretty much everyone, and they come and they've got mommy and daddy stuff, parent stuff, some painful, maybe also some sweet, but painful, bitter legacy from that they're bringing from parenthood, like that. Or let's say yeah, has has anyone ever experienced any pain, woundedness, or bitterness around attempts at romantic relationships? You don't need to raise your hand. You know, we're not going to do it. We're not going to do a whole thing. Okay? We're not going to do a whole thing because we know if there was like the 8.2 billion people on the earth, like, yeah, we know what you're talking about, like that. Okay, so right, so that's the nature of the shadow. But there is real water. So when we hear about the pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his parental relationships, in his chivalrous relationships, in his romantic relationships, then that's completely purifying for the heart. And that's because we all have a tendency for all these types of relationships, Janmadhyasya, and that tendency comes because Krishna has that tendency. Krishna has that propensity to enjoy varieties of relationships as a child and as a lover and as a friend and as a warrior. Krishna is that's where we get those propensities. And so we put Krishna's pastimes in the center of our relationships, then we're completely set. Then that's the real water. That's the real banyan tree. Okay. So we'll read a bit from, this is chapter 9 of Krishna book. This is the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. It's entitled Mother Yashoda Binding Lord Krishna. Once upon a time, seeing that her maidservant was engaged in different household duties, Mother Yashoda personally took charge of churning butter. And while she churned butter, she sang the childhood pastimes of Krishna and enjoyed thinking of her son. So we're following in the footsteps of Mother Yashoda. We just sang Damodarastakam. We're singing the childhood pastimes of Krishna. Now we can imagine correctly that Mother Yashoda just spontaneously is singing beautiful vibrations from about how attracted she is to the pastimes of Krishna as a child. From it's described as Jasida, Krishna Prema Sajakabanoi, Shavanadi Shudichite Karyodai. Love of Krishna is eternally situated in the hearts of all living entities. So Prema, Bhakti, love of Krishna is eternally situated in our hearts, and your hearts, and the hearts of the squirrels outside, and the trees, and the blades of grass. And then basically the root cause of our misery is we've allowed ourselves to forget about that loving connection with Krishna. There was one to Prabhupada, he was saying, yes, like we become disconnected from Krishna. And then Prabhupada said, no, we didn't become, we're always connected. We've forgotten that we're connected. We've forgotten that we're connected. And through this process of hearing and chanting, all aspects of the process that Prabhupada's given us, chanting Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, japa, and chanting Samsara Dava Nalalita Loka, and reading Krishna book and singing Damodarastakam, we're awakening that loving connection. And that's the bliss that we're actually hankering for. And that's a happiness that can never be ravaged by time, never be devoured by the snake of time. The end of her sari was tightly wrapped while she churned, and on account of her intense love for her son, milk automatically dripped from her breasts, which moved as she labored very hard, churning with 2 hands. The bangles and bracelets on her hands tinkled as they touched each other, and her earrings and breasts shook. There were drops of perspiration on her face, and the flower garland which was on her head scattered here and there. Before this picturesque sight, Lord Krishna appeared as a child. He felt hungry, and out of love for his mother, he wanted her to stop churning. He indicated that her first business was to let him suck her breast and then churn butter later. Mother Yashoda took her son on her lap and pushed the nipples of her breast into his mouth. And while Krishna was sucking the milk, she was smiling, enjoying the beauty of her child's face. Suddenly, the milk which was on the oven began to boil over. Just to stop the milk from spilling, Mother Yashoda at once put Krishna aside and went to the oven. Left in that state by his mother, Krishna became very angry, and his lips and eyes became red in rage. He pressed his teeth and lips, and taking up a piece of stone, he immediately broke the butter pot. He took butter out of it, and with false tears in his eyes, he began to eat the butter in a secluded place. In the meantime, Mother Yashoda returned to the churning place after setting the overflowing milk pan in order. She saw the broken pot in which the churning yogurt was kept. Since she could not find her boy, she concluded that the broken pot was his work. She began to smile as she thought, the child is very clever. After breaking the pot, he has left this place fearing punishment. After she sought all over, she found a big wooden grinding mortar, which was kept upside down, and she found her son sitting on it. He was taking butter, which was hanging from the ceiling on a swing, and he was feeding it to the monkeys. She saw Krishna looking this way and that way in fear of her because he was conscious of his naughty behavior. After seeing her son so engaged, she very silently approached him from behind. Krishna, however, quickly saw her coming at him with a stick in her hand, and immediately he got down from the grinding mortar and began to flee in fear. Mother Yashoda chased him to all corners, trying to capture the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who was never approached even by the meditations of great yogis. In other words, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, who was never caught by the yogis and speculators, was playing just like a little child for a great devotee like Mother Yashoda. Mother Yashoda, however, could not easily catch the fast-running child because of her thin waist and heavy body. Still, she tried to follow him as fast as possible. Her hair loosened, and the flower in her hair fell to the ground. Although she was tired, she somehow reached her naughty child and captured him. When he was caught, Krishna was almost on the point of crying. He smeared his hands over his eyes, which were anointed with black eyes cosmetics. The child saw his mother's face while she stood over him, and his eyes became restless from fear. Mother Yashoda could understand that Krishna was unnecessarily afraid, and for his benefit she wanted to allay his fears. Being the topmost well-wisher of her child, Mother Yashoda began to think, if the child is too fearful of me, I don't know what will happen to him. Mother Yashoda then threw away her stick. In order to punish him, she thought to bind his hands with some ropes. She did not know it, but it was actually impossible for her to bind the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Mother Yashoda was thinking that Krishna was her tiny child. She did not know that the child has no limitation. There is no inside or outside of him, nor beginning or end. He is unlimited and all-pervading. Indeed, he is himself the whole cosmic manifestation. Still, Mother Yashoda was thinking of Krishna as her child. Although he is beyond the reach of all senses, she endeavored to bind him up to a wooden grinding mortar. But when she tried to bind him, she found that the rope she was using was too short by 2 inches. She gathered more ropes from the house and added to it, but at the end she found the same shortage. In this way, she connected all the ropes available at home. But when the final knot was added, she saw that it was still 2 inches too short. Mother Yashoda was smiling, but she was astonished. How was it happening? In attempting to bind her son, she became tired. She was perspiring, and the garland on her head fell down. Then Krishna appreciated the hard labor of his mother, and being compassionate upon her, he agreed to be bound up by the ropes. Krishna, playing as a human child in the house of Mother Yashoda, was performing his own selected pastimes. Of course, no one can control the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The pure devotee surrenders himself unto the lotus feet of the Lord, who may either protect or vanquish the devotee. But for his part, the devotee never forgets his own position of surrender. Similarly, the Lord also feels transcendental pleasure by submitting himself to the protection of the devotee. This was exemplified by Krishna's surrender unto his mother, Yashoda. Krishna is the supreme bestower of all kinds of liberation to his devotees, but the benediction which was bestowed upon Mother Yashoda was never experienced even by Lord Brahma or Lord Shiva or the goddess of fortune. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is known as the son of Yashoda and Nanda Maharaj, is never so completely known to the yogis and speculators, but he is easily available to his devotees. Nor is he appreciated as the supreme reservoir of all pleasure by the yogis and speculators. After binding her son, Mother Yashoda engaged herself in household affairs. At that time, bound up to the wooden mortar, Krishna could see a pair of trees before him, which were known as Arjuna trees. The great reservoir of pleasure, Lord Sri Krishna thus thought to himself, Mother Yashoda first of all left without feeding me sufficient milk, and therefore I broke the pot of yogurt and distributed the stock butter in charity to the monkeys. Now she has bound me up to a wooden mortar. Yeah, he's accepting no responsibility here. No, he's just blaming, pointing the finger. Yeah. Yeah. Now she has bound me up to a wooden mortar, so I shall do something more mischievous than before. And thus he thought of pulling down the two very tall Arjuna trees. There is a history behind the pair of Arjuna trees. In their previous lives, the trees were born as the human sons of Kuvera, and their names were Nala Kuvara and Manigriva. Fortunately, they came within the vision of the Lord. In their previous lives, they were cursed by the great sage Narada in order to receive the highest benediction of seeing Lord Krishna. This benediction curse was bestowed upon them because of their forgetfulness due to intoxication. This story will be narrated in the next chapter. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 9th chapter of Krishna, Mother Yashoda binding Lord Krishna. The next chapter is entitled Deliverance of Nala Kuvara and Manigriva. Okay, so, it's very, so like Mother Yashoda, yeah, she's not, wasn't known as any sort of great scholar or philosopher or a great mystic yogi. And it's clear that that her spiritual realization is far, 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 far surpassing the greatest philosopher, scholar, or mystic yogi. And that's because the ultimate goal of all scholarship and philosophy and yogi and societal mores, the ultimate goal is to come to unconditional love for Krishna, the personality of Godhead. And she's there, and she's personifying that to the extent that Krishna is putting her in yoga maya to forget that she's that he's the supreme personality of Godhead, and they have the sweetest mother-son relationship. And Krishna, Krishna, for that gives Krishna even more bliss than someone who's worshiping with awe and reverence. We don't want to imitate Mother Yashoda. We want to learn how to bow down to God with awe and reverence, and rather than being rebellious to God. But this is a very advanced stage. Srila Prabhupada will sometimes give the example of, Prabhupada described there's a story, a true story. There was some in Britain. There was a great lord or the prime minister, some very highly powerful, respected personality, and then someone came to see him, and then the secretary said, "Oh well, he's busy now. You'll need to wait. You'll need to wait." So the fellow was waiting for a while, and he's waiting for a while, and because it's actually he's got very, very important business to attend to. You need to wait. But then at some point, after quite some while, the visitor, he 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 opened the door and he peeked in, and this great, highly positioned politician or business magnate, he was playing horsey on the floor for his grandson. He was playing horsey on the floor for his grandson, and so okay, so it's like it's a metaphor for the principle that, like, because we can imagine that the big important person got a lot more pleasure playing horsey, a lot more joy playing horsey rather than he probably had like thousands of employees or people who like, how can I serve you? You are so great, and okay, nice, but like his real joy came playing horsey for his son. So Krishna was like that. So I'll pause there at this point. If there's any sharing, inspirations, comments, questions.
What are the names of Krishna's father? Because yesterday it sounded something different, and today it sounds like Nanda something.
Yeah, thank you, Rachel. Your question indicates you're paying attention. Yeah, thanks for your question. It's a little complex. I appreciate the question. It gets us gives opportunity to discuss Krishna's childhood pastimes. So, of course, as we discussed earlier, it's described in Bhagavad Gita, Janma karma chame divyam evam yobeti tatvata tatvideham punarjanma neti mameti surjuna, that Krishna's birth is not a material birth. He appears. That's like sometimes Srila Prabhupada will use terms like Krishna's birthday. More technically, though, it's an appearance. Krishna's choosing to appear to Krishna's choosing to appear to give joy to his devotees and to do a mission. An example could be like, let's say there's the prison house and there's the prisoners. Now, the warden of the prison house or the governor or the president, they might choose one day, I'm going to visit the prison house. And maybe they'll hang out with the prisoners. Maybe even they'll eat in the cafeteria with the prisoners. Maybe they'll be in the exercise yard. Now, someone who's ignorant, maybe another prisoner, can go, ha, look, the governor's here. He's in prison just like me. Well, no, there's a world of difference because, like, if you want to leave prison, like, you can't because you got 2 more years to serve. But the governor can come and go as he pleases. So he's there on a mercy mission. He's there by choice. So when Krishna appears in this world and manifests his pastimes, it's by choice. So it's not like an ordinary birth based on the modes of nature and material desire driving this. But okay, so within that context, Krishna appeared in the dungeon of Kamsa. Again, this is described in Krishna book. I want to be sure you leave with a copy of this. I don't know if you already have this one, but others could see your natural attraction to this, the childhood pastimes of Krishna. So this is described in the early chapters. Krishna appeared in the dungeon of Kamsa, and his parents are Vasudeva, that's what we talked about yesterday, Vasudeva and Devaki. Vasudeva and Devaki. So that's his parents. Now, Kamsa, he was intent to kill all the children of Vasudeva and Devaki. Kamsa is quite a demoniac personality. He's a child murderer. Like, I mean,
King Herod.
Like King Herod, yeah. The similarities are quite phenomenal. Like King Herod, great example. So when Jesus was born there to Mary and Joseph, again, also not an ordinary birth, right? In Bethlehem, Beit Lehem translates as house of bread. We did Sankirtan in Bethlehem and Nazareth and Jerusalem, Yerushalayim. So I spent time there. We used to make special trips to Bethlehem to get ghee. They had the Arab Christians there made specially good ghee. And so it's very similar to Jesus's childhood pastimes. So just like King Herod, so Kamsa was a baby killer, and so we won't get into the whole story, but he was, and he did, and so Devaki and Vasudeva, they had children. Kamsa would find out, he would like kill them, and he would do infanticide. Okay, all right. So Krishna appears in the dungeon, and then through some special mystical arrangements, then yes, yeah, fine. Get some. Yeah, through special mystical arrangements, because Vasudeva and Devaki, they knew Kamsa was coming to kill him, like within hours. So Vasudeva arranged, he carried, just like Joseph carried Jesus to Egypt, right? So Vasudeva carried Krishna across the Yamuna River, and he carried him to his good friend and actually family member to Vrindavan, to Vrindavan, which was quite a significant walk away, just like Egypt is from Bethlehem, very similar. And so Vasudeva carried him, and that on that same night that Devaki, so-called, gave birth to Krishna, Yashoda gave birth to a female child. And while Yashoda, so in Vrindavan you got Yashoda and Nanda Maharaj. Maharaj means king. Now he wasn't like a king, like fighting battles. but he was like the leader of the agricultural community, the leader of those who took care of the cows and the bulls and the agriculturalists. And so so Vasudeva, without waking up Nanda and Yashoda, he replaced the babies because he knew that Kamsa was especially intent to kill the male children of Devaki. So he brought back the female child, and so then Krishna was left with Yashoda and Nanda. Now, when Krishna was growing up, it was considered, oh, he's the son of Yashoda and Nanda Maharaj. Actually, he's the son of Vasudeva and Devaki. Yes, yes. Yeah, let's close it just to keep the sound protection.
Did Yashoda?
So
Yashoda noticed.
Well, she didn't, because she was in Yoga Maya, and she was like, I thought I had given birth to a female child. So she was like, yeah, she was a little confused. I guess, well, maybe it was a male child. Because like she gave birth and she was exhausted and fatigued. Okay.
Okay, right after the birth.
Yeah, right after the birth. And she was like, oh, I thought it was no, I guess maybe it was a male child. Okay, that's actually described like that. And then, so actually, Mother Yashoda and Nanda Maharaj, they're Krishna's foster parents. And his parents are Devaki and Vasudeva. That's why I'm saying Krishna's father, Nanda Maharaj. That's true, because Nanda Maharaj is the one who raised him. Is the one who raised him with Mother Yashoda. But it's also accurate to say Krishna was born to Devaki and Vasudeva, but that was kind of kept secret because it was kept secret. They didn't want to know where Krishna was, because then Kamsa would go after him. And eventually, like fast forwarding about 16 years, Krishna goes back to Mathura, and he kills Kamsa, and it's all described in these pastimes.
What happened to the baby girl?
Oh, the baby girl. The baby girl. This is a great question. Okay.
It's not Radha.
It's not Radha.
Okay.
Radha's involved in many of these pastimes, very much. The baby girl is actually an expansion of a personality called Kali. Maybe you know something about, maybe you've heard, yeah, okay. The baby girl's an expansion. So the baby girl's name was Subhadra, but she was really Kali. So Kamsa, he had heard, oh no, Devaki gave birth to a female child, so you don't need to be worried. You don't need to kill. But Kamsa was, like, well, whatever. I'm just going to kill all the children, whatever the gender. Okay. And this is described. So then Kamsa comes to the dungeon. Kamsa comes to the dungeon, and he sees the little girl, and Vasudeva and Devaki. They're like, no, don't. Because Kamsa had a premonition that a male child of Devaki would kill him. So he said, no, look, it's a female child. And he was just mad, out of control, enraged. So he takes the female child, who's looking like a helpless female child, and he's about to bash her on the rock, which is what he did to other children, other infants. He's about to bash her on the rock. Look, and then she slips out of his hand, and she manifests her full Kali form with like 10 arms, ghastly, fierce. And then she just like, you fool. Actually, the boy who's going to kill you has already been born, and he's somewhere else, and you can't, Kali is like trillions of times more powerful than Kamsa. So that's some highlights.
Nice.
Hare Krishna.
Okay. She doesn't cut off his head right then and there.
It wasn't her service to do so.
Okay.
Yeah. There were, yeah, was it, just about 10 days ago, Anandini led a morning program class 10 days ago, specifically about the pastime described in the fifth canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, where Kali cuts off the heads of evil demoniac character, and her associates drink their blood and things like that. So we were absorbed in that pastime. Anandini led us. Yeah. It's recorded.
Okay.
Hare Krishna. Anything else at this time?
I have a question.
Yeah.
I kind of was never really clear about Vaikuntha, like, and what is it like there? Like what I've heard is that the residents there are married often and they worship Krishna.
Yeah.
But then there's that mood of awe and reverence, and
Yeah.
kind of not clear, like I'm trying to understand, like, how can a soul be satisfied in that kind of relationship of awe and reverence, and yet it's the spiritual world that. So is it because souls have different races with Krishna, so that relationship fully satisfies them?
Okay.
To me, it just seems like unappealing. So I don't know if it's because we've been given this higher, like we've been attracted. I don't know. I know that other sampradayas, that's at least my understanding.
That's their ultimate goal.
That's their goal.
Yeah.
Our goal is Goloka Vrindavan.
Yeah. Thanks for your sharing and question, Nitai. Thank you. Well, there's a lot there in that question. Well, Hare Krishna. Yeah, so the Vaikuntha is the only place in creation where there's no Maya. Okay. So here in Devi Dham, Golokanamni Nichadamni Tale Chatasya, Devi Mahesha Haridam Asuteshu Teshu Te Te Prabhava Vitash Te Prabhava Vitash Nishchaya Chayena Govinda Mani Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Lord Brahma. In Devi Dham, material existence, we're in Mahamaya. And we're in Mahamaya, and that's illusion that takes us further from self in Krishna. And in Goloka Vrindavan, they're in Yoga Maya. It's illusion that deepens their love for Krishna. Vaikuntha is the only place there's clear realization that Krishna is Supreme Person of Godhead, and I'm Krishna's servant. So it's the only place there's no Maya. And the Damodarastakam prayers. Damodarastakam prayers, the Satyavrata Muni, he says, I'm not interested in heaven, like the heavenly delights. They're just, they have no attraction for someone who's experienced the bliss of serving and remembering the childhood pastimes of Krishna. I'm not interested in personal liberation for a devotee of Krishna. Impersonal liberation is like hell. Hell is much better, like hell, heaven, whatever, as long as I can serve you, Krishna, and remember you. But in impersonal liberation, there's no service because there's only one. So that's like hell. And then the author, the revealer, Damodarastakam, is also saying, I'm not interested in Vaikuntha. And it's in many of the Vaishnava Sampradayas. I'm not interested in Vaikuntha. I just want to remember your curling black hair and your cheeks kissed by Mother Yashoda. Just let that memory, and that I don't want great riches or followers or like that. So it's a rasa. There's 5 rasas: Shanta ras, Dasya ras. Dasya ras means servant, and Sakya ras, friendship, Vatsalya ras, parenthood, and Madhurya ras, the conjugal ras. So there's 5 rasas, and so it's a bona fide ras. And for sure, in our line, the focus is coming in the line of Lord Chaitanya, Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Radha Krishna Nayana. Lord Chaitanya is a combined incarnation of Radharani and Krishna, and he's like a devotee of Krishna, showing us how to be a devotee of Krishna. He is Krishna showing us how to be a devotee of Krishna. So our line, we're not going for Vaikuntha. At the same time, it's a legitimate, pure spiritual ras with not as much intimacy as like Yashoda and Nanda Maharaj and the gopis. Not as much intimacy. At the same time, full spiritual realization. So yeah, and it's like, so that like that's the natural destination for some with a particular inclination to serve Krishna, particularly in Vishnu and Narayan forms. Now, as far as like whether some or many or all of the souls in Vaikuntha at some point develop a more intimate relationship and then go to Goloka Vrindavan to be a blade of grass there or something like that. That gets into more esoteric discussion, and I don't have much realization about that. And the acharyas do write about it. I will like that. So I appreciate the conversation. Anandini.
Hare Krishna, thank you
Hare Krishna.
for today's class. Good morning, Hare Krishna. Thank you for your questions. Yeah, I'm inspired. We were reading this morning in the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, and there Uddhava shares with Vidura about Krishna, Vasudev carrying Krishna to Vrindavan,
Wow.
and he shares how Krishna was afraid of Kamsa. Well, later on, he was afraid of Kamsa. And also here in the pastime you read, he's afraid of Mother Yashoda. And it's
Yeah,
very curious to me that the Supreme Personality of God experiences fear.
yeah.
Yeah, what is the, and I'm wondering, well, okay, so you shared everything that exists in the effect must exist in the cause, so there must be fear. So what is that fear? It can't be the fear that I know.
Thank you, Anandini. Thanks for sharing. Very interesting and amazing. Just this morning you were reading third canto and a pastime related to what we were just talking about, Vasudev carrying Krishna to Vrindavan, to Yashoda. Yeah. So if we experience fear, that must exist in the source, but that's the real banyan tree. That's that fear. That fear is win-win for all living entities in creation. Krishna experiences rage, and he'll rip demons apart. And Krishna experiences fear, and Krishna experiences all the emotions, sadness, and sometimes Krishna's, when his friends go into the mouth of Agasura, Krishna's worried and for the safety of his friends. So Krishna is experiencing fear that deepens the love of his devotees, because we can see here, so Krishna's fear, because the goal of all creation is to deepen our inspiration to dedicate our lives to love and serve Krishna. And then that's our bliss. Like in a sense, when we forget about our petty plans for happiness and our petty complaints and this and that, and let me just serve Krishna and forget about my happiness, then ironically, then we're blissful beyond what can be conceived. So Krishna's fear deepens Mother Yashoda's love for him and affection for him. And so Anand, yes, Ananda Chinmaya Rasa Pratibhavi Tabis Tabirya Eva Niju Upadai Kalami. It's like all Goloka Evani Visatya Kilama Bhuto Govinda Mari Purusham Tamahabhatmi, all of the spiritual emotions, they're permeated by spiritual bliss. They're permeated by spiritual bliss. So in some terms we use, right, like it's not like a toxic or a grungy fear or anger. It's permeated by spiritual bliss. And we can have like at least some experience of that, right? Like, because sometimes like, let's say if we fully get into like anger release, just fully connecting in a way that's not destructive. Okay, then it's just like anger. there's release, there's joy, there's freedom. But let's say we're resisting just sadness and grief and crying, and then we just let ourselves go to experience that emotion. Well, it's grief, it's sadness. There's also a happiness, there's a joy there. So it's like we have some indication there. So so Krishna's fear, it's just permeated, it's in the container, it's on the foundation of loving affection for Mother Yashoda, or loving affection for his friends, and Krishna's fear, or all his emotions, deepen the affection and the attachment for his devotees, for him. So it's not material fear born of illusion, born of ignorance that, like, I'm this body, and this body, I'm this ego, and this ego is going to be attacked, so I need to I need to be fearful and look like that. Or, let's go back to the story Prabhupada shared. So there's that big important man, and he's playing horsey, and let's say the little child is saying, like, if horsey, if you don't do what I do, I'm going to whip you. Yeah, I'm going to whip you. No, no, don't hurt me. I'll do what I do. You want me to go here? I'll go there. And then the child's like, yeah, yeah, I got this big horse under my control. He's scared of me. So it's fear. It's fear, but it's real, but it's play acting also.
Thank you for that. Okay. Yeah. And there's another question that came up for me actually when in the third canto, in the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes how when Vasudev carried Krishna to Vrindavan, Krishna disappeared in the waves,
Yeah.
and Vasudev was searching for him. And I don't see that anywhere else. I haven't seen that anywhere else. Do you know more about this?
Oh, it's in a purport or in a verse?
It's in the purport.
Yeah. Okay. Right. So again, so Krishna is apparently getting drowned in the waves. And so Vasudeva is feeling fear. So Krishna's pastimes increase and deepen the intensity of his devotees' love for him. In that case, Vasudeva, in this instance, with fear of Mother Yashoda. So, okay, well, okay, we have Krishna book and we have the 10th canto, first 13 chapters. And if it's not in either of those places, there and then there are many other descriptions of Krishna's pastimes that are bona fide. Padma Purana, the Garga Upanishad. Garga Upanishad, it's like 30 volumes. Padma Purana has pastimes, and there's many other places too. There's many literatures bona fide, authorized with Krishna's pastimes. Now, in saying that, I don't want to in any way indicate any minimization of Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada, whatever he comes out with, that is Shastra. We wrote a book last year called Srila Prabhupada Shastra, Perspectives on the Infallibility of Srila Prabhupada. So Srila Prabhupada could have just some personal realization about Vasudeva and Krishna in that pastime, like that. At the same time, like, and the one thing is, in the 10th canto verses and purports, there's a lot there that's not in the first 13 chapters of Krishna book, so that's one thing. And then otherwise, there are many sources of Krishna's pastimes. I've mentioned a few of them. So that's there.
Okay, that's helpful. Yes. Well, it seems that like 1 hour in the life of Krishna can be described in thousands of books.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm.
And sometimes the descriptions of pastimes are apparently like contradictory, and there's because Krishna is enacting his pastimes right now in some material universe and in Goloka Vrindavan. So So it's, so like there are so many authentic histories of Krishna's pastimes, and it's described. Bhagavatam sometimes sometimes describes pastimes and histories from different universes or different creations of Brahma from lifetimes in the past, which could be trillions of years in the past, because it's not like the approach isn't like a material, linear, historical, chronological description. I mean, that's there to some extent, but the whole approach is like Shukadev Goswami, Srila Prabhupada, Sutta Goswami, Vyasadeva. They're going to be presenting whatever stories they need to present to support us to come out of material Maya and realize who we are as spiritual souls and connect with our original love for Krishna. So whatever pastimes will serve that.
Mm, thank you. I do have one more question, but maybe someone else wants to share something.
Vasudeva the ferryman.
Yeah, really, you're paying attention, Rachel. Thanks for that. Yes. Yeah, so Vasudeva is, like in the pastime, is the father of Krishna. And then there's the book by Hermann Hesse called Siddhartha. And so we read that in our seminars. Usually session 3 of day 1 of the foundational seminar. And really, the meaning, Vasudeva is a name of the father of Krishna. And the meaning of the name Vasudeva is one who's in the transcendental position, the lotus-like position. And really, what you just asked, Rachel, it points to really the main reason why I read that. Well, first of all, it's a very appropriate comment about Vasudeva the ferryman in the book Siddhartha. So Siddhartha, Hermann Hesse, I mean, he one of his books is called Journey to the East, and one of his books is called Steppenwolf, where he actually mentions Krishna directly. So Hermann Hesse, writing in Germany in the 1930s, was like really absorbed in the Vedas. So Hermann Hesse borrowed a lot, got a lot from the Vedas, and so by bringing that excerpt into the seminar, everyone gets to hear the name of the father of Krishna. And Vasudeva is a name of Krishna himself, pronounced slightly differently with a long A, Vasudeva. Vasudeva is the father of Krishna. Vasudeva means the son of Vasudeva. And so, yes, you've made correct connections. So Hermann Hesse in the book Siddhartha, and the whole Siddhartha, it talks about Kamala. Kamala is the name of a main character in Siddhartha, and Siddhartha, of course, is the name of the Buddha who, in the Vedic tradition. So Hermann Hesse, it's all about that Vedic tradition. Hermann Hesse there, he enters into Krishna's pastimes, and it's really quite fascinating because he was writing like 100 years ago in Europe. So yes, he used the name Vasudeva for the ferryman. And just as the ferryman was this like transcendental personality who pure empathic listening, Vasudeva means one who's not pulled and pushed by material desires. Full sattvic consciousness, pure mirror. Thanks for that. Anandini?
Okay, what would you say is the essence of Kartik?
Essence of Kartik?
Yes.
If you essence of Kartik, I don't use the word Kartik. I use the word month of Damodar.
Okay. So what would
That's
you
it.
say is the essence
That's the
of
essence.
that? That's the essence.
The essence, that's it. To remember Damodar. Damodar is a name for Krishna, meaning one who's tied with ropes around the waist. Okay, it's his pastime. So the essence is to Smartavya Sachitam Vishnuvi Smartavya Najatuchit. Always remember Krishna, never forget Krishna. The essence of Kartik, increase our remembrance of Krishna's childhood pastimes. That's the essence. And by saying Kartik, that doesn't really help me remember Krishna's pastimes. So say, oh, the month of Damodar.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Were children often punished by being tied around the waist to stones?
You're thinking to call health and rehabilitative services and Mother Yashoda. Well, yeah. So it was apparently. First of all, we need to get the essence of Mother Yashoda's love and affection for Krishna. So she's certainly not. Even when Mother Yashoda left Krishna, and that's where he got angry, she just did it in service to Krishna. Because one said, well, I need to take care of the milk. It's just like, well, I'm just boiling the milk for you, Krishna. It's like it's all in service to Krishna. So she's disciplining Krishna in this way to, as you commented earlier, to like, help Krishna learn some responsibility. Right? It's like if he grows up and he's irresponsible and just destructive and not obedient, like it's not going to serve him well. So yeah, like that. So it's not like a modern or postmodern parental maltreatment.
The kids running around too much, like just tie him to something so he doesn't make mischief. Or I have seen like children on leashes being walked around like shopping malls and stuff. But yeah, I was just curious if that's like a cultural thing back in that time.
I would say yes, it was a cultural thing back in that time. And in this instance, it's done with true love and affection beyond what we can conceive. Rosa.
After we sang the Damodarastakam, there's a section, Radha Damodar.
Yeah.
And I was listening to some things about Kartik because I was wanting to understand. And something I heard was that this is actually like the month of Radha. And that, so there's not necessarily a pastime with Radha and Damodar, but we observe Damodar during Radha's month. Do you have something? I don't know what that's about.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the question is.
Is this supposed to be Radha's month?
Or is it Radharani connected to the pastime?
Yeah.
Because it's supposed to show that Damodar, but then we sing Jai Radha Damodar.
Yeah. Well, Radharani and Damodar have intimate connection. And generally, yeah. So Srila Prabhupada gives us Srimati Radharani. In the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, Srimati Radharani appears 8 times. Hare, that's Srimati Radharani. And at the same time, Srila Prabhupada and the Acharyas, they're protective. It's kind of, maybe like, it's like the most cherishable, precious entity in all of creation is Srimati Radharani. So it's like we're not wanting to throw pearls before swine. Srimati Radharani and her relationship with Krishna can easily be misunderstood and misconceived by someone with any sort of mundane desire. So like there's discretion in used in when and where and how we present Srimati Radharani. Interested in Srimati Radharani? Read this book. Read this book. Read Nectar of Devotion. A great way to understand about Srimati Radharani is to scroll here and there on the internet. False. False. 99.999% probability you'll get misled, confused, misinformed, and misguided. And it's like, oh well, no, that'll be like really damaging for your spiritual life, guaranteed. But there's a lot about Srimati Radharani. She's the most powerful force in not just this universe, in all of creation. There's particular chapters. Here, Chaitanya Charitamrita extensively. So, Nectar of Devotion. So I encourage you to hear and learn about Srimati Radharani from authorized sources.
So does she get a month?
She gets every day.
You know what I mean? Where it's like a focus every day in the month. I feel like it's not fair.
A focus.
Yeah, like Kirti, it's the whole month and focusing on the boys' pastimes. They're sad to hear that it's also Radha's month and like, oh well.
Again, I don't know the details, maybe I misunderstood.
But what is her month? Like, what is the time to celebrate her? Just her? Is there such a thing? Denise? When is it?
Well, there's Sri Radhastami. We had a festival here for Sri Radhastami.
So that was the one like a couple months, like in the last couple months. Was it a weekend?
Yeah, so there's Srimati Radharani's appearance day.
It was a Sunday. Okay,
Yeah.
another day.
And Srimati Radharani also not an ordinary birth. She was actually found in a field by her father. And because Vishabhanu, and she was found in a field, a little baby girl in a field.
What happened?
It's pastimes of Srimati Radharani. So these are very confidential pastimes, very confidential pastimes. So yeah, so I encourage everyone to hear about, learn about, and absorb in the mood of Srimati Radharani, and through a pure devotee of Srimati Radharani, Srila Prabhupada. Yeah.
He talks about it.
Yeah. Quite intensively and extensively, in completely appropriate ways. In completely appropriate ways.
10th canto, right? It's the 10th canto. Well, I guess the pastimes, no?
Krishna book. This book, read this book, and then you'll have a profound realization about Srimati Radharani. Like, yeah, it requires some heavy lifting. It's not a cheap thing. It's not a cheap thing. So every time we chant the Maha Mantra, we're celebrating Srimati Radharani 8 times. Krishna's only there 4 times. Krishna book, Nectar of Devotion, and the entire Chaitanya Charitamrita. And then you'll have then we get some glimpse. And I would say read all of them at least 3 times. And then we'll have some glimpse into who is Srimati Radharani. Just a drop. I mean, there's unlimited oceans. So Srila Prabhupada speaks and writes extensively in appropriate ways. It means he's not throwing pearls before swine. In appropriate ways, such that someone
Very
who
subtle.
very subtle. Yeah.
Why?
Why? Yeah. because Srimati Radharani is to be cherished. It's to be cherished. It's not something cheap or superficial or superfluous. It's something to be revealed with someone who has the heart and consciousness that's prepared to receive it, to receive realization about Srimati Rani with grace and dignity. Anandini wrote, Srimati Radharani will reveal herself when we're ready to understand, when our heart is pure. I prefer to wait for that day rather than impose false conceptions into my consciousness. You said it much more eloquently. No, Anandini, I think you said it much more eloquently, but we can have an argument about that. Yeah, so yeah, it's the most precious, confidential subject in all of creation, and so the devotees of Srimati Radharani, yeah, they're not interested to just you're Srimati Radharani, and then people will misunderstand and impose all sorts of gross misconceptions. So that becomes an offense to Srimati Radharani.
But why? Because it's all, here's Krishna, everything, every day, whole month for the pastime. It's not the same.
But isn't Chaitanya Charitamrita, I mean, Lord Chaitanya
It's
appeared
half and
in the
half,
mood
right?
of Radharani, so he does talk about the mood of Radha and her service to Krishna. That is discussed, it's there.
It's there. Yeah.
It's just the intimate pastimes of Radha and
It's there,
Krishna are not dealt with the detail because we're so contaminated with the idea of material love that we can understand that we will easily, misunderstand it. But the mood of Radharani is there. We discussed, isn't it, a lot in Japan? So we can't see that she's a mystery, she's not being talked about.
Yeah, Radha Krishna Pranay Vikati, Ladini Shakti Rasma. Radha and Krishna are one. And at the same time, they're distinct. So they're honored and discussed and celebrated. With it in one sense, it's one, and at the same time, there's distinct ways. There's distinct ways to honor and serve them and speak about them because they're one. At the same time, they're distinct. So there's different ways to honor and celebrate them, just like there's different ways to honor Mother Yashoda and a different way to honor Prahlad Maharaj. They're pure devotees of Krishna, but we celebrate them with different moods, different songs, like that.
The mood that I get from it, I don't know that this is helpful, right? But I'm just trying to come up with a metaphor. I don't know if you've ever been in the presence of someone when they're like walking down the street, and usually it's a male, and without saying anything, they will move to the other side of you, so that way they're between you and the street. And it's not a conversation, it's not anything that they like bring to your attention, but the point is like shelter and protection. Meanwhile, there might be a couple dressed up going to someplace nice, and the man has the woman on his arm, and they're walking, and he has no thought to move himself in her protection. It's more like, it's a show. They're walking down the street to go to someplace nice, and her presence with him is more of a show than it is about the well-being. And so that's the mood that we get. It's different between, like, what are we doing, right? When we talk about trees around running, is it a protective mood, or is it some kind of show?
I see, I feel like. Yeah, like that's like a possession thing, right? Like, look at me, I have her.
Yeah.
I'm awesome. Look, see how awesome I am to have her. That's a possession thing. For me, celebrating like a female saint or mother of God or female, I don't know if she's female godhead. If that's what she's considered, but that's not like a possession, it's honor. And I guess like this is, I brought this up several times, it keeps coming back to me, like, I feel like there's just it hurts my heart. Because I just see like, it's not about possession or like,
It's not about possession, it's
Yeah.
about, this is my revered object of worship. And I have a protective mood. Not that Radharani needs protection. At the same time, the sincere devotee of Radharani has a protective mood. It's not my possession. This is my revered, cherished object of worship. And I know I'm ready to be fierce that she's not going to be sullied or insulted or in any way spoken or thought about in a way that's debased or degrading, not as a possession. This is my revered object of worship, and I'm ready to protect.
I just don't see the connection between like honoring and celebrating and like debasing.
Who's debasing?
Cause like there's a whole month now for these pastimes,
Yeah.
but there's not something like a Sunday, but like where's more, and I don't see having like more focus on her now and then and talking about her and maybe worshiping, that aspect as like debasing or throwing pearls before. Like I understand, like it's cherished and it's
There is a lot of gross debasement happening. There's a lot of gross, disgusting, debasing talk happening, gross, evil, that is a great offense to Srimati Radharani, and there's a lot of it happening, including in this neighborhood, including all around the planet, because of irresponsible talk about Srimati Radharani. I'm just stating fact. So Srila Prabhupada's protecting us from committing such offenses. There's a lot of it happening. There's a lot of destruction to spiritual lives happening because of irresponsible, reckless, low-level, degraded talk about Srimati Radharani.
like what?
Well, like what? I don't get you in a spirit of discovery. Okay?
You think I'm debasing, you think I'm this thing.
I'm not getting you in a spirit of discovery. So I'm just stating an obvious fact. You're not aware of the obvious fact because you haven't informed yourself. So I'm personally appreciating Srila Prabhupada for how he gives us Srimati Radharani in such a appropriately cautious way. But why do you even need to be cautious? Because so many are not cautious, including today. And so many spiritual lives are being crushed and destroyed, and people are being misled from the actual service and reverence of Srimati Radharani. So there's a lot of Radharani talk being done recklessly and sure, we could give examples. I don't want to. I'd rather discuss and hear about Radharani in an appropriate way rather than say like, this is a nonsense way and this is a garbage, misleading, this is a manipulative way, this is presenting Srimati Radharani in a way that is misleading and misinforming and actually an insult to Srimati Radharani. There's a lot of that going on. Go on the internet, 99.9% of it is what I'm talking about. So personally, I appreciate Srila Prabhupada and how he's giving us Srimati Radharani in such in such a fine, respectful, and loving way.
I want
Srimati,
to hear more about Radharani.
how come you were not here for Radhastami?
I didn't know about it. I didn't know there was anything about Radharani until you told me.
So we have. Okay, so I welcome you to keep in touch with them about our programs. And, yeah, come on. So we're giving you Srimati Radharani extensively. I'm giving you, on behalf of Srila Prabhupada, more about Srimati Radharani than you can absorb in a lifetime if you absorbed yourself 24 hours a day. Srila Prabhupada goes, yeah, but I want just like focus in. We're giving you more than you can absorb in the next 50 years. And so in the books, in talks, in lectures, extensive, abundant. It's there. Just this morning, I'm reading Chaitanya Charitamrita and the Madhya Lila Vrindavan pastimes. Hundreds of pages about who? Srimati Radharani. Srimati Radharani. That's where I was absorbed this morning for 45 minutes. Want to read together? Let's do that. We can do that in the next few days. Be happy to do that.
More days for her too, though, because then we get to talk about her.
Today is Srimati Radharani's day. I was absorbed in her pastimes for an hour this morning. So you can be absorbed in her every day. There's abundance there.
I guess she has to go to the down. That's where everybody worships the Ram, and that's where she's the focus.
Exactly.
In Vrindavan, yeah, they're not really greeting each other with Hare Krishna. They're really greeting each other with Radhe Radhe, Jai Radhe.
She's the queen of Vrindavan.
Yeah.
She is actually, that's why, I mean, our group is called what would you call it, Gaudiya Vaishnavis?
Yes.
We're worshippers of Srimati Radharani. And the whole philosophy is that she is more important because to her we go to Krishna, so she is worshipped actually more than Krishna. She comes first, Gaudiya.
Srimati Radharani ki.
Jai.
Krishna Book ki.
Jai.
Sri Radha Damodar ki.
Jai.
Srila Prabhupada ki.
Jai.
Hare Krishna.